If you believe that film somehow is a reflection of life and a reflection of your interior life, then you have to think, okay, but is life stories actually? When you think about your own life, about your past, about your, memories really, is it the story? When you think about your memories from childhood, is it about the story? When you dream at night about, the past, is it, is the story the main thing, or is some feeling? Is it faces? Is it colors, sensations? To me, these things are much more important. So if you're honest, it's like talking to a person. If it's the wrong person, then of course you can't have a meaningful conversation. But if it's the right person and you speak with your heart, then of course he's gonna reply that way. I think cinema is the same thing. And the point of showing a film is not just to be high as director and show people some vision, or to tell people how to see the world, how to understand, how to create some sort of description or some sort of characteristic of the world. The point is to show your questions, your problems, and to enter into a dialogue. I think the film image should be like a mirror for the spectator, in the way that he should be able to recognize himself in what he's seeing. If he's seeing only you, then there is no meeting point. The whole communication between a spectator and a film is between the screen and the spectator. It's not only there; it's in the spectator as well, because everybody can see his own self in what recognize that, and that's only possible if you're sincere. If you have just a story, then with me personally, I don't have an intimate contact with the film that is just telling me some sort of story. Besides, stories are all the same, as Dimitar says. I mean, if you narrow them down, the archetype, of a story, it's very similar. From the Bible onward, pretty much the same things happening. So it's not about the story; it's about the depth, something like that. I think part of the whole art of filmmaking is to show, so that people can see again this thing that they miss in prosaic, in normal life, Because we live very automatically, and we see objects and things, but somehow they just pass away, they're meaningless. But sometimes they have some sort of depth that we miss, and sometimes filmmaking is just inviting you to see again the same things that are around you, but in a different way, so that you can see the meaning, what's behind this this material world, to see maybe the essence, something spiritual in the material, to turn matter into spirit, as Nikos Kazantzakis says.
So why mathematics versus vision?
His question was why, about how can you have mathematics in documentary filmmaking when you can't do it?
Well,
I think
everyone wants mathematics, Everyone wants to
yeah, of course you can't predict exactly what you will shoot, but there are many different types of documentary films. Sometimes they can be mathematics in documentary filmmaking as well. I think when you know exactly how you want to, what the message of the film is. For example, you want to show people how bad genetically modified food is. Then there is a lot of mathematics, because you're gonna shoot a lot of things, but then you're gonna mathematically arrange what's necessary to serve this idea, what's unnecessary. And let's say artistic documentaries, when you just observe and you don't make a judgment, it's when you don't judge what you're seeing.
But it's not like a new thing.
It's
not like a new thing, because, for example, Agnes Varda, she produced films of images, photographs took like in Cuba after the revolution, and then and it's also cinema, it's also film.
Yeah.
Because this mix of documentary and live action film is the most amazing thing of it. Like this movie or
definitely.
any others.
And I also really like films which are in between documentary and, for example, there is an Italian film called The Quattro Volte. I don't know if you've seen it. By Michelangelo Framartino. And it's just observation. It's pure. It's very close to the, the Confucius idea of art, when art is born from observation of nature. Because when you have such images which are very, they're very still, it's very close to the idea of sezercania, like contemplation. This is different type of perception, different mode of seeing. It's not just seeing the surface; it's going in depth You know, I really like images which invite you to contemplate, not just to see the information. It's not only about the information, because life is not information, it's other things which are difficult to show, I think. But even Tarkovsky was talking about in his book about the fact that you should hide from the rest of the crew. You know, there should be something that only you know. You use directly, only you can understand, you can feel it, you can see it, and other people don't know about it. And when the film is done, then maybe they can feel it after that. Because otherwise it becomes different. You know? It's not interesting. First of all, it's not interesting if everything is completely clear and we just have to shoot it. Me personally, I wouldn't be interested. There should be some question, there should be something unclear, something mysterious about it, something that you feel but you can't put in words.
But it is there. It's not that you don't know and you cannot explain. You know it, but
you can
just that
feel
you
it,
don't tell it.
Yes.
It's also the thing that Robert Bresson told, don't explain, just suggest. You just have to suggest, and other people, they will find their own explanation.
Yeah, but he said it in different context. He said it about like visual language, meaning that don't explain what's happening, but hint it, like with the images. So, for example, he has shots where there's, synecdoche is a literary term. When you show the whole using a detail, it's good. Synecdoche, I don't know how it's in Ukrainian. Synecdoche, yeah. So cinema is art of synecdoche, because you always show just one small, there's always off screen, there is always the whole world around the image, and you show just the small part of it, which is synecdoche for the whole. And I think he meant it in such a way. He always shows like hands opening doors, gestures, and that's what I mean. That's why I think he means suggest in respect to suggest the whole using the detail. But of course, nowadays it's very fashionable to kind of narrow down filmmaking to some sort of fixed pattern where you just have to tick the boxes and fill the empty space. The way you write a script, for example, it's all about the story. You have to organize the story in 3 acts, and all these rules, which are very interesting. But from my personal experience in film schools, they never worked. Actually, I mean, the films that people made following these rules were very sterile. They didn't have any life. There wasn't anything personal. It was just coming from the idea, I want to make a film, how do I make a film? And then you have to ask the reason yourself. What is the reason to make? Why do I want to make this film? Do I want to express my personal life, my fears, my worries, my desires, my dreams? Or do I just want to create a product? If you want to create a product that is, a decent film, okay, yeah, I mean, you can follow the rules and you can make a film that is watchable, it makes sense, but then you ask yourself, is this really art? Is this really making, what is the point of the whole thing? Why am I doing that? Is it a narcissistic, impulse to make myself feel as a filmmaker, or am I really trying to communicate my innermost, problems? Because I think that's we can agree that that's the point of making a film, or making any sort of art. When you sit in front of the piano, you don't think, now I'm gonna. You try to, okay, this. You try to feel what's inside you and try to express it as directly as possible. It's the same with filmmaking. I think if you're honest with yourself and if you just try to reveal without any sort of mask your real self, what you're really interested in, what really worries you, what you really love, what you believe in, then it doesn't matter if people like it or don't like it. That's the only path, I think. So if you're not sure if you're a filmmaker, then just try it. Maybe if it doesn't work, then try something else. But regarding this question, I think it's important not to consider yourself as an artist, especially in the beginning, I think. You have to consider yourself an artist with respect to your duties, not with respect to your image in society. I think that's the difference.
But the thing is that now nobody wants to be a farmer or a clerk. Everyone wants to be an artist.
Yeah, it's that's a social problem. That's to do with the world we live in, which is it's modernity where everybody has the right to be anything he chooses. It's very liberal. It's neoliberalism. So if I want to be something, I have the right to be something. So it's a problem with art, with mass art. Now everything has the right to be art. So there's no rules, there is no hierarchy. So but that's a different problem, I think. You have to feel like an outsider. Because if you feel like everybody else, then you're nothing special. Nothing special. The films you're making, they're nothing special. People who create art, usually, they are in the periphery of society, in a way, you know. They spot these things which are problems for themselves, but they're not problems for the majority. So in that way, you're an outsider. And you have to rebel against the world. You know, every artist in the history of art has always been in conflict with the time. No? I mean, why would you make anything if the world is perfect and harmonious and there are no problems? You make it from the problems that you encounter, you know, social problems, ideological problems, you know, political problems, all kinds of problems. That's the starting point. So it's this act of rebellion. It's the same when you show it to people, you know. It's normal to feel like an outsider. That's how it is. Otherwise, you're serving somebody else's expectation and taste, and then you're not a filmmaker. You're just a producer of products. You convert that for visual products. You know, if everybody likes your films, if everybody thinks, you know, it's great. And if you make this to just satisfy somebody else's taste, that's McDonald's. You know, you just make stuff to feed people the easiest possible way. It's the same thing. But there are different types of problems. There are problems which are considered problem by everybody. These, let's say, the fashionable problems. For example, gay rights, minorities, you know, these things that everywhere on the internet, in all the news, everybody knows, you know, that, you know, everybody has the same opinion about it. At least there's an ideology that tells you that this is, for example, a problem. If you serve those problems, then you don't really rebel because everybody, you know, follows this ideology. Then you just, how can I tell? It's like during communism, for example, you have, you know, class battles and stuff. And according to the communist ideology, this is some sort of problem, you know. The bourgeois is suppressing the working class. Yeah? That's a problem, it's a social problem. If you serve that during communism, are you rebelling against something, or are you just following the ideology, the doctrina? You're not. So I think it's better to spot problems which are not that well known, which people don't notice, you know.
So which are these problems for you, for example?
There are many. That's not related to cinema now. Let's not talk about it. There are many problems. So you know, it's a spiritual crisis. You know, people are getting less and less interested in. It's a time of, you know, very radical consumerist capitalism, where everything is for sale. There is complete decay of any sort of values of authorities. It's postmodernism, you know.
Do you think that it's important that film should be this exploration, or you should explore the world before and then to shoot it?
Well,
your personal.
Yeah. It depends. I think what you mean is that whether you should know everything before you start making the film, or whether you should discover things when you're making.
Should the film be this
exploration?
Exploration, and it should be shown like.
It's different for many people. Some people like the process of filmmaking. They don't know what the film will be, and you know, it's the whole process of making the film that creates what you see. Some people know very well what they want, and they just, you know, capture it. For me, I think me personally, I like both. I know I like to have an idea, and I like to know what I'm going to shoot because I've thought about it and I've imagined it. But then I like the chance, you know, something you know, intuitive to happen as well. It's very powerful. Intuition sometimes is much more powerful than rationality.
And I also think that in professional filmmaking, when the crews are really huge and you have a lot of pressure, actually the whole filmmaking process is so stressful that I don't know how can you be opened to something new, how can you use your intuition when there's always someone who tells you, now we do this, now we do this.
Yeah, I don't think you can improvise much with a huge, you know, crew. It's, I think, logistically impossible because all these people prepare for a specific shot. You can't tell them, okay, now we're shooting something completely different, and they're gonna go crazy around it. So, yeah, definitely, if you want to use your intuition, then maybe it's better to shoot with a small crew. But I think for me, it's both. Just because sometimes I can just be on set, I mean, on the location, and I can see an image that I can't imagine, you know. And I know it's great, so I said, okay, let's try, let's shoot it, let's add a shot if it's possible.
Yeah,
because otherwise, yeah, if everything is clear, then really it's not interesting. There's nothing to surprise you. There's always some sort of rational structure. But what I meant is that, as far as I remember, I don't remember this whole thing that they wrote. So that's a typical feature for art house film, that you don't necessarily have, for example, the pattern of cause and effect. You know, in classical continuity filmmaking, you have cause and причина и следствие. For example, somebody looks, you know, and something, you know, what he looks at, this kind of causality in English. Причина и следствие, I don't know how to say it. Bresson wrote about that. In life, for example, you never have this structure, because in life, in reality, personally, you always have the effect, and then you think about the cause. Isn't it like that? You know? When something happens, then you think what the cause was. You very rarely can see the cause and then the effect. So when we talk about when we talk about poetic filmmaking or musicality, of course it's amorphous, because the reason is not everything. You know, the things that emotions, they're amorphous. I think that's what I said, wasn't it?
Yeah, and also I think that when you watch a film, you don't really remember what exactly happened in the film when time passes. You know, you don't remember the obstacles of the character or the events or you remember the emotion. That's what you remember when time passes.
That's why you make film. That's why you make films. Very famous British or American, I think, critic, Susan Sontag, and she wrote about the East European. How do you represent East European, you know, period after communism? It's a very difficult thing. And she said that Bellatar and Sharunas Bartas managed to show not this film in Corridor, but they managed to make a very good portrait of East European society.
Not touching the social problems.
No, just to show people. No, sometimes a face tells you so many stories. Not when you see, for example, an old lady in the tram with her bags and with her, you know, that's already so many stories. You see a whole life there. You can imagine the whole context.
Yeah, you don't have to show her hungry or begging or something.
Exactly.
Just to make Western people cry and
that's much more important, because when you see that, it's personal. Yeah, you have direct connection. You don't have somebody's opinion about it. It's just life.